He normalioed this story about Karen, since she said that claiming that she has a relationship with you should be taken off the market. And Mr. Trump said, I don't buy stories because it always gets out. And then I said, I still think you should buy the story. And Mr. Trump said to me, I'll speak to Michael and he'll get back to you. And so, as you sit here today, you remember that during that conversation, you said to President Trump, it is my understanding that she doesn't want her story published. Yes. I did. I remember saying that. And you testified about that eyes. At this trial, right? Eyes. On April 23rd? Eyes. I just wanted to make sure and remember. Question. Yeah. I appreciate it. Sometimes it takes another that's correct. I want to talk a little bit about Chatham Asset Management, okay? Okay. There was later a lawsuit involving Chatham relating to some of those events in the summer of 2016, right? Emerger Stanglass objection. The court overruled. Can you clarify about with respect to lawsuits? iPayment sued Chatham Asset Management, correct? The former chairman of iPayment, the company. Not the company itself. And you were named as a defendant in that lawsuit, right? Eyes. And the allegations that are at issue in the lawsuit were going on in that summer of 2016, correct? Eyes. And you talked about the issues of iPayments with Cohen, right? Yeah, I did. Right? And you also tried to get Cohen a job at iPayments, no. I can clarify that. Please. Michael Cohen Pitchett requested for me position at iPayment. He was looking to become the new president, the new chairman, because the former chairman was terminated. Did you talk to the chairman of iPayments about that? No. I spoke to Chatham about it. And they had no interest in Michael Cohen. Do you recall telling the federal government that the chairman of iPayments did not want Cohen to take Pecker's place? Mr. Stanglass objection. The court, Mr. Bove, the court sustained. Mr. Bove, judge, can we have a quick sidebar? Yes. Thank you. Whereupon, the following proceedings were held at sidebar. Mr. Bove, thank you, judge. I don't mean to be dense. I just want to make sure I'm following the objection right now. I asked if he recalled saying that. He said no. My next plan was to refresh his recollection that was said. Court, what's your objection? Mr. Stanglass, it's twofold. 1, I think that was an improper impeachment technique. Second of all, it's basically, a relevance objection. What is the relevance of the fact that Michael Cohen tried to get a job, that there was lawsuits involving companies that have nothing to do with this? Mr. Bove, the relevance is that Cohen and Mr. Pecker were working together personally, separate and apart from what President Trump was doing. The court, I'll allow it. Mr. Bove, thank you, judge. Whereupon, the following proceedings were held in open court, whereupon, senior court reporter Lisa Kramsky relieves senior court reporter Lori Eisenberg, and the transcript continues on the next page. The court, thank you. The objection is overruled. Cross-examination by Mr. Bove, so before that break, we were talking about iPayments, right? Yes, and my question had been, did you and Mr. Cohen discuss Cohen getting a job at iPayments, right? Eyes. And you did discuss that with Cohen, correct? I did. And I think you said, before the break, that you did not discuss Cohen getting a job with iPayments, directly with iPayments, right? That's correct. And I think you said before that sidebar that you had only discussed that with Chatham Asset Management, right? Eyes. But do you recall telling the federal government that the chairman of iPayments did not want Cohen to take Pecker's place, right? Mr. Stanglass, the court, objection. Sustained. That's consistent with what he testified to. In this same time frame, in the summer of 2016, you were also talking to Mr. Cohen about Mark Cuban, right? Eyes. And Mr. Cohen was looking at potentially working with Mr. Cuban, right? That's what Michael Cohen told me. And he actually asked you for a little bit of help around that, right? Yes, he did. He asked you, did he not, to send paparazzi to photograph the meeting between Cohen and Cuban, right? Eyes. And he made that request because he said that would put pressure on President Trump to treat Cohen differently, right? Yes, and you agreed to help him do that, right? Yes, to put a little pressure through the National Enquirer on President Trump, correct? I wasn't. No, that's not correct. You understood that the natural consequence of that publication would be to put a little pressure on him, right? Michael Cohen never said that to me. My question is whether you understood that publishing photographs like that, even if it wasn't going to be harmful, could put a little pressure on President Trump, right? Eyes. Mr. Bove and Mr. Bernick, could we take a look at People's 156 in evidence? And this is the agreement between AMI and Ms. McDougal from August of 2016, right? That's correct. And this agreement looks a little bit different in terms of formatting from the one with Mr. Sajidin. Right? Eyes. Mr. Bove and Mr. Bernick, can you please zoom in on paragraph 3? And you were asked some questions by Mr. Stanglass about this provision of the agreement, right? Do you remember that? Eyes. And I think that one of the questions was whether this document was set up so that it would disguise the other provisions in the agreement. Do you remember that question? Yes, I do. And I think you said, yes, this paragraph was designed to disguise the other paragraphs, right? Yes, but there were actually very real paragraphs in this agreement, right? Yes, Mr. Bove, and you can zoom back out, please, Mr. Bernick. Very real obligations for AMI, correct? Yes. And, in fact, you told the federal prosecutors that you believed it was critically important to follow the words of the McDougal Agreement because you did not want any illegal or campaign violations that would open the door to legal action by McDougal. Mr. Stanglass objection. Sustained. The court, you told the federal prosecutors that the other provisions of this agreement mattered. Right? Yes, I did. And it created real obligations by AMI, right? Eyes was, and you didn't tell the federal prosecutors that this is a disguise, correct? Mr. Stanglass objection. The court sustained. Mr. Bernick, could you please zoom in on paragraph 1? And, so, do you see at the start of this paragraph, there is a reference to 2 years from the effective date? Eyes. And so that's basically a 24-month period on this part of the agreement? That's correct. And AMI purchased the rights to use Ms. McDougal's name, right? Yes, and likeness in 24 columns in Star Magazine, if I have that, and you also purchased the rights for 24 columns using Ms. McDougal's name and likeness in OK Magazine, right? Eyes. Eyes 4 posts per month in Radar Online? That's 96 columns over 2 years, right? That's correct. Bove, and if you could zoom in, please, now on paragraph 2. This relates to magazine covers, right? Yes, and so these are other things that AMI purchased from Ms. McDougal in connection with this agreement. Right? Yes, and these were real obligations on the part of AMI, correct? Yes, they were. And in exchange for all of these things, the columns, the blog posts, the magazine covers, and the story rights, AMI agreed to pay Ms. McDougal $150,000, right? That's correct. But during the negotiations, Ms. McDougal was not focused on cash percent, was she? I'm sorry, could you repeat that again? Ms. McDougal was not focused on cash during the negotiations, correct? Not focused on? Cash. Money, not focused on money. The cash amount wasn't a primary portion of the agreement. What Ms. McDougal was to focus on was the provisions in paragraphs 1 and 2, right? Oh, for her, yes. Because as you said earlier this morning, she was looking to restart her career, is that correct? Yes, that's right. And she had started part of her career within men's fitness, right? Eyes. And which was part of, at this point, in 2016, an AMI publication, right? That's right. And you, at that point, viewed AMI as making a good relaunching point for Ms. McDougal. Correct? It was all part of this agreement. And there was actually a video conference, a presentation to Ms. McDougal about the types of things that AMI could do for her, correct? 8 was a video conference, correct? And during that video conference, the presentation touched on the promotional opportunities that Ms. McDougal was looking for, correct? Eyes. And that was in the end of June of 2016, right? That's correct. And during that video conference, there was no discussion of a monetary payment, correct? That's correct. And AMI told Ms. McDougal that her promotion in AMI magazines would be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, correct? Yes, and nobody was lying to her, right? No. And, in fact, AMI's publications ended up running more than 65 stories in Ms. McDougal's name, right? Eyes. Screen, when AMI signed this agreement, the one that's on the you believed it had a legitimate business purpose, correct? Yeah, I did. Bove, you can take that down. Thank you. Can we now take a look at People's 158, which is in evidence? Q, do you recall talking to Mr. Stanglass about this document yesterday? Eyes. And I think you said that this is an invoice from Keith Davidson, right? I did. Correct? This is actually AMI's record relating to the invoice, eyes. And so it's not the invoice itself? It's an AMI record, as you said, that's correct. Reflecting whatever Mr. Davidson's invoice said, right? Yes, that's correct, and AMI had employees who created a record like this when it got an invoice, right? Eyes. And as far as you understood it, the standard operating procedure was for the employee to take the information from the invoice and put it in the system? That is correct. Bove, and, Mr. Bernick, if we could zoom in on the bottom row, please. Q, do you see that, the headers on these columns, account, department, and operating unit? Yes. There were people at AMI and the accounting department who completed that information, right? That's correct. And they did that based on whatever invoice Mr. Davidson sent, correct? Yes, you didn't put those codes yourself? No, I did not. You trusted people to do it accurately, right? I did. And that was AMI's standard operating procedure? Yes. At Bove, Mr. Bernick, can we please take a look Government Exhibit 159, which is also in evidence? You testified about this one yesterday also? I did. And I think you said that it is a general ledger detail for the $150,000 transaction with Mr. Davidson. That's correct. And, basically, the data from the document that we just looked at, People's 158, feeds into a general ledger entry like this, right? Yes, that's correct. And that's an automated process, right? Eyes. Correct? Based on information that Mr. Davidson provided, yes. And that you trusted your accounting people to input, correct? I did. Bove, if we could zoom in on the right side of this so that we can catch the date column, please. It's a little blurry there, but do you see the column heading that says date due? Eyes. And I think there is an 8/9/2018 after that. Do you see that? That is correct. And you were asked some questions about this yesterday, right? Yes, that, and it wasn't clear to you from this document whether this was the date of the invoice or the payment, right? Because those are the types of details that are hard to yes, that's correct. Keep track of for someone at your level, right? Eyes. And you had a whole department who was focused on keeping track of those details? That's correct. They had standard operating procedures, right? Yes, and you trusted their work? Eyes. Mr. Can we take a look at People's Exhibit 160, please? Mr. I'm sorry, I think it's 161. Mr. Let me correct myself for 1 minute. It's my fault. People's Exhibit 160, page 2. You remember this from yesterday, right? Yes, and there is some handwriting on this document. Do you see that? And you testified that one of the people who approved this voucher was Chris Palomini? Eyes. He was AMI CFO at the time? That's correct. Mr. And, Mr. Bernick, can you zoom in on the bottom third of the document? There are some other approval signatures here, right? Yes. It looks like there is a signature by a controller, with the last name Brady. Do you know who that is? That's Stephanie Brady, yes. And then to the left of that there is a signature, AP approver. Do you know who that is? I think that's LR. That's Liz Ruotalo. So there are people at AMI you trusted to process records, right, like this, right? Eyes. To review and approve them, right? Correct? And you were comfortable that they were following procedures in 2016, right? And there are no false entries in any of these records, are there? Mr. You can take that down, please. And if we go back now to People's 156 in evidence. This is the agreement with Ms. McDougal. Eyes. No. Eyes. Yes, you testified that you consulted a campaign attorney about this agreement, right? And you also said that you consulted AMI's general counsel, correct? And I think you testified on direct that you told Michael Cohen the agreement was, quote, bulletproof? And that is a term that you used to convey that there is no legal ramifications, right? That's correct. That's what you said when that's what you meant when you said bulletproof to Mr. Cohen? Yes. And I would like to take a look at the trial transcript. Mr. And this is for everybody, please, Mr. Bernick. Page 1128, lines 1 through 18. And if you can take a look at that, Mr. Pecker, and let me know when you are done, please. I am done. And, so, do you see the questions beginning at line 12? And I will read it, and was that all the campaign attorney reviewed, as far as you know? Do you see that? Eyes. And you said, as far as I know, yes. And I just want to make sure that I understand the being said here. Is it your testimony that you withheld information from the attorneys providing advice about the agreement? No, I did not withhold information on the agreement. And so you didn't do anything inappropriate when you consulted counsel relating to the agreement with Karen McDougal. Did you? No, I did not. And when you told Mr. Cohen that the agreement was bulletproof, you meant it, right? Yes, I did. Because you had legal advice? Right. Mr. We can take that down. Thanks. Now, you said that Karen McDougal had an attorney in connection with the negotiations with AMI, right? Yes. Keith Davidson, if I have it right? Eyes. And Mr. Davidson was one of the major sources for Dylan Howard also, right? Yes, and so he was an attorney for Ms. McDougal, correct? Yes, but at the same time providing information directly to Mr. Howard, if I have that right? Eyes. And was that a normal structure in AMI's source?